Well, hello, Donald's Creek, and welcome to day 17 of 31 Days in Proverbs. Glad you're here. Obviously, it's the 17th day, so we're on Proverbs 17. There's three things that I want to point out before we get on to win, place, and show, and our three things. So, three observations that I want to point out. I want to highlight three passages, and the first one actually is one of my favorites. I love this passage. It is in one of my top 10. It's a more obscure passage, not one that kind of stands out or that you see on a plaque or on a poster or a t-shirt like the others, but this one is one of my favorite. For the crucible, verse 3, is for silver, and the furnace is for gold, and the Lord tests hearts. So the Lord does test, and it's not to see if we have faith. He provides faith. All good gifts are from above. He gives us the faith. He tests, as this says, hearts to get rid of impurities. So you may already know this. I'm going to say it anyway. When you have a precious metal or any metal, my dad worked in metals, and one of the things they do, they will heat it up, and that gets rid of the impurities. That is how it's made more pure. And so you have the very same picture here, is that through a testing, you get rid of some impurities. When I am going through a testing, sometimes I'm aware, sometimes I'm not. But when I'm going through a testing, I remember Romans chapter 8, that all things work for the good for those that love the Lord. All things, not some things. And so a couple of more things to think about is, number one, you may have said or you may have heard that the Lord will not give you more than you can bear. Come on now. You've probably heard it. You may have said it. I have said it in past until the scriptures corrected me. And the scriptures tell us in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, around verse 8 to 8 through 11, somewhere in that area. Paul is talking that they were tested so severely that they were disparaging even life. They're like, I don't even know if we're going to make it through this. We're not sure we're going to live. And he gives the reason. So all things work for the good for those that love the Lord. Why was God testing him so hard? So that he wouldn't rely on himself, but learn to rely on God. And so that is getting rid of that impurity. So oftentimes what people will quote, as I just said, is that God will not give you more than you can handle. And they're referring to God will not allow you to be tempted beyond what one can bear. He always gives you a way out. Temptations can be trials, but all trials are not temptations. So you may want to write that down. Not all trials are temptations. So God can, and he did for Paul. I'm not saying he's going to do that for everyone, but he can give us a very heavy load. And we, in turn, he is glorified because we are made more pure and more dependent upon him. So, great, great, great proverb. Love that. Next one. An evildoer listens to wicked lips, and a liar gives ear to a mischievous tongue. What I see here is, just a cycle. In fact, when I read that the first time, I laughed. When I say, not the first time, because I've read through Proverbs quite a bit. When I read through the first time before getting ready for this, small presentation, I was like, oh man, I've not seen that before. But, it's just a vicious cycle. They just keep feeding into each other. And the last one here, 17:28. This is the very end. This is a very clever proverb. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. How true that is. As soon as you open the mouth and, you don't have a whole lot to contribute, that's when it becomes obvious. Yes, I like that one. We'll put a smiley face there. What about our win, place, and show? Wise versus fool. It's often wise. That's usually win or place. It's either here or here, but it's number one. Bribe or justice is place, and the wicked is show. Now, on to three things. This is kind of cut and dry today, so I'm not going to be bending your ear for very long. Thing number one, 17 verse 5, it says that whoever mocks the poor insults his maker. He who is glad at calamity will not go unpunished. All right, so remember that this isn't law. We've talked about that before. We're not reading law. We're reading a different type of genre. So these are, again, a general observation, unless the proverb is about law, and this isn't law. So why this stood out is we have a lot of beggars, and sometimes it's a scam. There's even a book. I meant to pull it down, and I didn't, so I apologize. But there is a book that Presbyterian and Reformed book publishers put out that is about helping us to find a way to help those who are in need, who have genuine need, without giving them money. Because sometimes it does go for drugs. And my attitude, sometimes it varies. It cycles. Sometimes I'm like, Jesus didn't tell me, he didn't instruct me to figure out where they're going to spend the money. He instructed me to give to the poor. And that's true. However, we are also, as we get to thing number 3, supposed to be wise stewards of our money. And there are all sorts of ways of helping people. And I know that you probably have your ways. You can give them food. You can give them gift cards. You can do all kinds of, I've taken, in years and years ago, I've taken some to lunch. They still asked for money even after they got to eat. I happened to be on my way to lunch, so I took the person to lunch with me. But there's a lot of scams, and it's not just about going to buy drugs. Sometimes there are people on corners here in town, and I'm sure it's everywhere in the United States, that are a part of a group that are dropped off by somebody, and by some, I don't want to say corporation, but by some larger entity, and all the money goes to that entity, and they're paid an hourly wage, that they're really not homeless, that they are dropped off, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of scams. But this really stood out to me. It's not so much the giving of the money. It's maybe what I've said about these people. We're made in God's image. And maybe I should just take Mama's advice. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Because it's really easy, not so much, I'm not saying to make fun of these people, but to get a really bad attitude, because you know that they have, many of them have substance abuse problems. So maybe it's best to say, this person is made in the image of God. In some way, it's an image bearer. And so maybe I shouldn't mock them. So, I don't know. Kind of stood out. Thing number 2. Wow. 17:12. Let a man meet a she-bear robbed of her cubs rather than a fool in his folly. How serious do we take foolishness? I know that we're looking at literature. I know that might be hyperbole. It might be just stating a fact. You think if you get confronted by a bear, you die. Probably 90% of the time, you're going to die instantly. There are some who's wrestled away or gotten away or done this, that, or the other. But you could pretty much bet, not going to make it out of this. Or if you're a foolish person, according to these scriptures, you could die a death of 1,000 cuts. So instantly, or over a 10, 20, 30, 40 year period of time, just doing stupid folly things. So this could be, hyperbole, exaggeration for effect. It also could be real. the thing is, do we really look at wisdom that way? Do you really look at Proverbs this way? Because this really puts a burden on us. A good burden. I think about things that I have thought was funny. Beavis and Butthead. I know. You don't expect a pastor to say that. But, I knew kids. I knew people in school like that. So Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber 2. There's many things that makes light of foolishness. And I don't want to be a Dougie Downer. My name's not Debbie. And Debbie's watching this. We don't want to talk about Debbie. We love Debbie. I do love you, Debbie. But I don't want to be a Dougie Downer. But really, when we make light, like Beavis and Butthead, Dumb and Dumber, I purposefully didn't watch Dumb and this was way back in the 90s when it came out. And I actually watched it years and years and years later. But I was like, I stood on principle. We're making light of being an idiot. And okay, it's for entertainment. I don't want to be an independent fundamental Baptist. That's the last thing I want to be, is a fundamentalist. Fundamentalists take the fun out of everything. So I don't want to be that way. But let's just step back and look. Do we really look at wisdom like this? And I would say no, we don't, on average. Okay, and I'm not saying don't watch Dumb and Dumber. You get my point. I hope you get my point. If you do, corner me and we'll talk. Last one, 17:20. It goes back to this loan thing. A man of crooked heart does not discover good, but the one with dishonest tongue falls in it. That's not the one I was wanting. It was, it's 28, sorry. No, it's the one about money and getting away from those who have, there's 18. It's 18. One who lacks sense gives a pledge and puts up security in the presence of his neighbor. This takes us all the way back to 6:1. That's one of the ones we talked about 11 days ago on 6 verse 1, talking about money and giving pledge, and that we must be very careful not to do this. So there is this thing that, Christians, we're just thrown into this socialist pile that we just don't invest, that we're not supposed to talk about investing. And when Jesus over and over again and again talked about investing, talked about being wise with money, talked about taking advantage of opportunities to make money, nothing unchristian about that. And I don't know where that started or why, but we are encouraged to be wise with our money, even when it comes to giving a pledge for those. It kind of goes a little bit, kind of goes back to this, that we are encouraged to be wise with our money. We are to give. We are to be generous. We'll get to some Proverbs about generosity, but we are supposed to be wise. Okay, that's it for today. That wasn't too bad, now was it? Day 17 of 31 days. How about we meet and do this again tomorrow? I think that would be a terrific idea. We'll do that. Okay, have a terrific rest of your day.